Lesson 13, adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. When we add and subtract fractions, there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. The denominators must be the same to add and subtract fractions. And if they are different, then you need to find a common denominator for each of the fractions. And then add and subtract whole numbers with other whole numbers, and then fractions with fractions. Don't combine the two. And then the last part is reduce the fractions when possible. So keep those in mind as we go through these sample problems. First one, simplify with like denominators. So the denominators are already the same. So we do not have to do anything different. We just add the numerator or we subtract the numerators. So 3/4 plus 3/4 will give us 6/4, or we can rewrite this as 1 1.5. Next one, 3/5 minus 3/5 is just 0. Simplify with unlike denominators. So now the denominators are different. We need to find common denominators. And usually you can use the one that's the least common denominator, but it doesn't have to be. So 3 and 4, the common denominator of 3 and 4 is 12. So I need to have two fractions that have a denominator of 12. So I multiply 3 by 4 to get 12. Whatever I do in the denominator, I must also do in the numerator. So 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 8/12. I need to multiply 4 times 3 to get 12. Multiply the numerator by 3 as well. And so 3 times 3 is 9, so 9/12. I add them together, I get 17/12. You can keep your answer at 17/12, or you can rewrite it, and it would be 1 5/12. Next one, 3/4 minus 1/6. Common denominator again is 12. So I have two fractions that have a denominator of 12. I need to multiply 4 by 3 to get 12. 3 by 3. That gives me 9. 1/6 multiplied by 2 halves. So that would be 2/12. Subtract them and you get 7/12. And the last one here, 4/5 plus half. I can make these the common denominator of 10. So I multiply 5 by 2 and the 4 by 2, so then that gives me 8/10. Half is just 5/10. If I add them together, I get 13/10, or I could write it as 1 3/10. Next problem is more with like denominators. Denominators are the same, so I add the numerators. 4 plus 5 is 9, divided by over 9, that's the same as 1. 2/3 minus 2/3 is just 0. With unlike denominators, this first one, common denominator is 8. So I just keep the first one the same. I need to multiply 4 by 2 to get 8. Whatever I do in the denominator, I must also do in the numerator. So 2 times 1 is 2. If I add them together, I get 3/8. Next one is 5/6 minus half. Common denominator of 6 and 2 is 6. So I keep the 5/6 here. Half of 6 would be 3, so 3/6. If I subtract, I get 2/6. 2/6 can be reduced by dividing by 2 halves. And that gives me an answer of 1/3. And the last one, 1/3 minus 1/4. Common denominator is 12. So I have two fractions that have denominator as 12. I multiply the first fraction by 4/4. That gives me 4/12. The last one I multiply by 3/3, and that gives me 3/12. 4/12 minus 3/12 equals 1/12. Now with mixed numbers, remember you add the whole numbers, and then you add the fractions. But before we can add the fractions, we need to have common denominators. The common denominator of 2 and 4 is 4. So right now I have 3 and 2/4 plus 1 and 3/4. So if I add my whole numbers, 3 plus 1 is 4. 2/4 plus 3/4 is 5/4. But we don't want to have a mixed number with the fraction part having an improper fraction. So we need to rewrite that as a mixed number. So 5/4 is the same as 1 and 1/4. So 1 and 1/4 plus 4 is 5 and 1/4. 3 1/2 minus 1 and 3/4. Common denominator is 4. So I have 3 and 2/4 minus 1 and 3/4. Now I can't take a bigger fraction away from a smaller fraction. So here I need to actually borrow. If I take a whole number away, I have 2 whole numbers. But here I add 4/4 because 4/4 is the same as 1 whole. So I add 4/4 plus the 2/4. So now I have 2 and 6/4 minus 1 and 3/4. And that would give me an answer of 1 and 3/4. Next side, 3 and 1/3 plus 2 1/2. Common denominator is 6, so I have 3, multiply this by 2/2, which would be 2/6, plus 2/2 would be 3/6. So if I add them together, I get 5 and 5/6. And the next one here, 6 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/3. Common denominator is 6, so I have 6 and 5/6 minus 2 1/3 multiplied by 2/2 would be 2/6. Now I can subtract them. 6 minus 2 is 4. 5/6 minus 2/6 is 3/6, which is just half, so 4 1/2. And some word problems here. The end of a 2 by 4 foot piece of lumber is actually about 1 1/2 by 3 1/2 inches. If one 2 by 4 is nailed on top of another 2 by 4, what will be the dimensions of the combined edge ends? So to find this one, we want to know the dimensions of the combined ends. So what we're really doing is finding what is this part of the boards and what is this part of the boards. We're going to do the vertical part first. Since we know the first parts, this part is 1 1/2, and then I'm adding another board, so that's another 1 1/2. That would give me 2 and 2/2, which is the same as 2 plus 1. So we have 3, so this side is 3, and the bottom part just stays the same, so that is 3 1/2. So we have 3 by 3 1/2. Next one, Nelson wants to replace a piece of molding across the top of a door. The door frame is 32 1/4 inches wide and is trimmed with molding on each side that is 1 5/8 inches wide. How long does the molding across the top need to be? We need to find the question mark there. So we're going to take this middle piece, add it to this piece and this piece, because that will give us from here all the way to over here. We have 32 1/4 plus 1 5/8 plus 1 5/8. Common denominator is 8, so 32 2/8 plus 1 5/8 plus 1 5/8 equals 32 plus 1 plus 1 is 34. 2/8 plus 5/8 plus 5/8 is 12/8. I can simplify 12/8. First, let's simplify it. So I can divide by 4/4, and that would give me 3/2. 3/2 is the same as 1.5 plus the 34 we have. We would have an answer of 35.5 inches. And the last two questions. The carpenter cut 15.5 inches from a 2x4 that was 92 5/8 inches long. How long was the resulting 2x4? So they had 92 5/8 and they cut, so we're taking away 15.5. So we need common denominators, so 92 5/8 minus 15.5 1/8 would be 15 4/8. So 92 minus 15 would give us 77. 5/8 minus 4/8 would give you 1/8. That would be the resulting, what's left of the 2x4. And then the last question, if the top of a bulletin board is 74 3/4 inches above the floor and the bottom is 38.5 inches above the floor, then what is the vertical measurement of the bulletin board? So we have from the top of the bulletin board to the floor, and we have the bottom of the bulletin board to the floor. We need to find this piece. So if I take 74 3/4 and I subtract my 38.5, I should get that middle piece. I need common denominators. So 74 3/4, because fourths is the common denominator, minus 38 2/4. So 74 minus 38 would give us an answer of 36. 3/4 minus 2/4 would give us 1/4 inches.